So there are probably a lot of videos going around right now about goals and stuff like that because it's the new year, and I'm going to add to it a little bit. But I had this interesting idea yesterday about combining goals with the scientific method. So here's a review from your science fair in elementary school. The scientific method has a few basic steps. First, you have to ask a question and then form a hypothesis about it. Then you perform an experiment, you analyze the data that you collected, and then you form a conclusion. The scientific method is based on empirical epistemology. Epistemology is the theory of knowing, and empirical epistemology means knowing or learning based on observation or experience, like as opposed to logic, authority, or beliefs. Now, how does this relate to goal setting? Well, I think that one of the hardest things about goals is actually motivating ourselves to follow through on them. I mean, there are so many people who make goals at the beginning of the year and then only keep going with it for a short amount of time. That's why January is the biggest month for gym memberships. Well, in order to successfully complete goals, you have to start with a good one. So I'm going to start with that and then move on to the scientific method thing I thought about. I don't know how many times you've heard this because I've heard it a lot, but you have to set goals that are quote-unquote smart. That follows the acronym of S for specific, M for measurable, A for attainable, R for relevant, and T for time-bound. And having these 5 attributes will actually help you to be able to form your goal into a scientific experiment. And hopefully this experiment will motivate you to follow through on your goal. When it comes to making a goal into an experiment, it's just a matter of phrasing things a little differently. Your goal that you started out with could change into a what happens when question. For instance, one of my New Year's goals is to go to bed earlier, like at 10 p.m. So I could change that into a question stating, what happens when I go to bed at 10 p.m. every night? You can even make it more specific to the results that you'll be analyzing, such as, how much sleep do I need each night? Or will going to bed at 10 o'clock every night help me wake up earlier? This step can take some creativity, as this is where you'll be deciding what results you'll be tracking later on. After you've chosen a question, then you need to form a hypothesis. As it comes to goals that you set, I'd suggest to form an optimistic hypothesis because that'll help you actually be more motivated to go along with the experiment. I think my hypothesis is going to be, if I go to bed at 10 o'clock every night, then I think I will begin waking up naturally at 7 in the morning after having 9 hours of sleep. And then, after you've chosen a hypothesis, then you perform the experiment. At this point in time, you're just going to have to decide what data you will collect and how you will collect that data. Then, you have to actually follow through on your goal to perform the experiment. So I am planning on going to bed at 10 o'clock every night in January, and as a part of the experiment, I'm going to collect data on what time I wake up and whether or not I use an alarm clock. And so, in order for this experiment to work, I have to go to bed on time every night. Once the time frame you set in your original goal comes to an end, then you will analyze the data and conclude whether the goal produced the intended results, aka whether or not your hypothesis was true. And then I would suggest that you use your results to set a new goal and keep going on it. Come the end of January, I'll post again about my experiment so you can know how it goes. Now, who wants to experiment with this experimental method of experimentation for achieving your goals? Well, thank you for watching. Leave a comment below about what you want your experimented goal to be, and don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe on the way out. See you next Saturday.